Hey folks, this is Jesse Cope back with another episode of the American Soul Podcast. Hope y'all are doing well wherever y'all are and whatever part of the day it is for y'all. As always, I appreciate y'all giving me a little bit of your time. I say this every so often. Uh, I know that time is one of our most valuable commodities these days. Perhaps it always has been. But so I realize that y'all are giving me something precious by spending some time here with me each day. And I know that, and I appreciate it, and I try and make sure that I give y'all something worthwhile of spending that time with me. So thank y'all. For those of y'all that continue to share the podcast, as always, I'm humbled by that. Y'all continue to help it grow week in and week out overall. And so I'm kind of shocked by that, but I'm also very grateful for that. And as I said, I hope that y'all get something out of it, and I hope that the country gets just a little something out of it. We're going to take one of our walks, have both dogs so far. I don't know if y'all heard them right at the beginning, but the guineas were making themselves known. They may come out and tell me again that I need to come feed them or something. No cats, no children, no wifey. So we're going to go for our little walk and see what we can see. Every once in a while, I go back and rehash something. Sometimes because I've thought of something new that I feel like needs to be shared. Sometimes, more often, just because I think it's something we need to go over again. I talk about this for those of y'all that have listened to the podcast. You're going to be pretty familiar with this. Muscle memory. Marine Corps taught me a lot of really great things. Really, I should say they re-emphasize. That's not the word that I want to use, but that's what popped into my head. The lessons that my parents taught me in a lot of ways, my church, the people there. And one of them was muscle memory. You do something often enough, hundreds, thousands of times, then when you get in a really stressful situation, dire circumstances, your back's against the wall, you're scared, freaked out, anxious, whatever it is, nervous, your body kind of takes over and you just do the things out of habit. And hopefully you've made good habits and not bad habits. And so your body reacts even when you really can't sometimes. That's true mentally as well as physically. And I have become more and more convinced the more I dig into this, our history, our heritage, that if we had been doing the job that we needed to muscle memory wise, that we would not be in the situation we are today. Because when we got a Supreme Court and decisions that started to pass completely immoral and un-American laws, rulings, like separation of church and state in the modern sense, and Roe v. Wade, things like that, we would have looked around and gone, no, no, no. And so when I rehash some of these things, folks, there's a purpose. We need to know this stuff. It needs to be easily recalled. And another one of the things the Marine Corps taught me was you have to know yourself, but you also have to know your enemies. And that's also important as a nation, as individuals. We need to know what we're capable of, what our strengths and weaknesses are. We also need to know that about the people who fight against us, who stand for evil values. And so every once in a while, I need to go back and rehash some of what our enemy stands for, because we need to know it. We forget it And that's how they sneak in. Individually, you talk about the devil, nationally, right? You could really talk about the devil again, but leftism, socialism, communism. And so I want to go back and look at a quote that we've looked at before, but it's been quite a few months. And I really, honestly, I probably ought to go through this quote at least about once a month, if not more often, because it's so shocking that it's so accurate. This is a quote by Vladimir Lenin. Lenin associated with the USSR, Bolshevik Revolution, Marxism. It's a quote from 1921, which I used last year, and I thought that that was pretty impressive that it was exactly 100 years later. Once I read through this, you'll see, and I mean impressive in a really bad way. And I've got other couple quotes, but I'm almost positive we're not going to get to them today, so we'll probably have to push those back. So we're going to read through this, and this is kind of Lenin's playbook. This is his game plan, and we're going to see how well or poorly it's being executed today. Corrupt the young. Get them away from religion. Get them interested in sex. Make them superficial. Destroy their ruggedness. Well, the left, modern American left, has done a pretty good job of kicking God out of our institutions, even though our country was founded as a Christian nation, as President Wilson, President Truman, and so many others that we talk about on this podcast have noted. So they're doing a pretty good job there. And even within church, they've made inroads. Feminism, leftism. I believe very recently the Pope for the Catholic Church just started to push redistribution of wealth, which is not pushed in the Bible at all. Get them interested in sex. Good Lord, the left has done an amazing job at that through culture, social media, everything these kids see. They get sex pushed at them from every possible angle. TikTok videos, Instagram, Snapchat, kids shows even have sexualism pushed in it, the LGBTQ movement. And really, the really darker thing here, folks, is the left. There's a Bible verse, can't pull it up, y'all can go look it up, talks about pretending that evil is good and good is evil. So they take sex outside of marriage between a man and a woman, and they twist it to be good. It's great. Go have sex. You want two men, y'all want to go have sex, two girls, whatever. It's great. Sex outside of marriage, great. We're going to put it in all our movies, all our books. We're going to, anytime. And then they take it in a situation where in a marriage, you really ought to have an immense amount of freedom sexually. But they've managed to take it and make it, we don't have time for that anymore. No. Once you get married, you got other things to worry about. Sex is not the important issue. And really, honestly, it's kind of oppressive in a marriage. You really shouldn't have to worry about that so much. I've done a fantastic job of twisting that message and making it try to seem bad when it should be good. And then again, when it's bad, try and make it seem like a good thing. So, doing a real good job there again. Superficial. If you have any association with teenagers at this point, and you could really make the argument, folks, that we as adults are just as bad, if not worse, because we should know better. Watch them make TikTok videos. Listen to their conversations, to what they talk about. See if there's any depth or not? We get them focused on so many things other than the important stuff, especially via education. Do we teach in America through public education? Do we teach about marriage? No. Do we teach about sex? No. Do we teach about having children? No. With few exceptions, folks. There's some what we used to call home ec classes out there. I mean, there are some exceptions for sure, but few and far between. And it's not across the board. It's only the students that take those classes. Do we teach our history and heritage? Absolutely not. In a very limited sense, and even that often is twisted. Do we teach finances, mortgages, car loans? Again, extremely limited when it's there, and we move on. And then we force them to spend hours and hours and hours and hours testing and learning subjects that are going to have no relevance on their life past school. Destroy their ruggedness. Perfect example. We have gotten to the point we've allowed feminism to come in and twist into transgenderism, so that now we got to the point where we told boys they needed to be more and more like girls. And we told girls that they weren't worth anything unless they were like boys. So that's kind of the flip side of ruggedness, right? You know, when you look back at our pioneers, at our founders, men were men and women were women, and they were both very rugged in their own way, in a masculine way for the men and in a feminine way for the women. And now we've taken it and we've told them, well, no, you're not worth anything unless you're more like the other one. So we've gotten to the point now where we're going to have boys who think that they're girls and girls who think that they're boys. And we pretend with them. We play along right with them. So again, the left has done an amazing job of executing this vision by Lenin about destroying ruggedness. So we'll keep going with this quote. Get control of all means of publicity and thereby get the people's mind off their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books and plays, and other trivialities. I love this in a bad way, folks, because it points out, like, even 100 years ago, Lenin knew what to get people focused on. Get them focused off their government. Get them focused on little things that don't matter. Get them away from focusing on their faith and their marriage, right? And get them focused on sexy books and plays. So again, sex through culture. All you have to do is go scan briefly, very briefly, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, regular TV, music videos, music itself, modern books. Sex is inundated in all of those. Again, not in a positive light in a marriage between a man and a woman like it should be, but in a negative light outside of marriage, pretending that it's good. And then the great part of this to me is athletics. He knew already before athletics were even a thing, which I guess you could go all the way back to the gladiators in Rome and you could talk about the fact that we've always kind of had athletics there. But before, in the professional setting, the modern sense, he knew. Get them interested in athletics. How many hours, folks, and I've talked about this before, do we spend watching football, basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, track, tennis, golf, and not only watching professional level, but then we use our kids as an excuse to go watch them play hours and hours and hours. And how much time do we spend with our kids talking about God? Like, not even a drop in the bucket. It's not even comparable. How much time do we spend with them talking about marriage? How much time do we spend interacting with them? Because when you're watching your kid play sports, you're not interacting with them. You're sitting in the bleachers and they're on the field with a team. Now, maybe if you're coaching them, You could talk about a little bit of interaction, but you are still coaching a whole team if it's not an individual sport and your interaction is not one-on-one with your kids. You're just sitting there. It could be you. It could be some random stranger sitting there for all they know. And we spend hours and hours on athletics and sports. And there's others. There's other pitfalls, folks. If athletics is not your pitfall, don't think that you're doing this fantastic job, because I just almost guarantee there's something in your life that you're spending hours doing besides working on your relationship with God and your relationship with your spouse. And then we have the gall, the audacity to look up and go, man, my faith is so weak. And my marriage is just, it looks good on the outside, but it's just a mess. I know it's a mess. I don't think anybody else knows, but I know. Why is that? And my country is just falling apart. How did this happen? I don't know. It's a real head scratcher. Can't figure it out. We don't want to spend any time talking about the important issues in life because we've allowed ourselves, we've allowed the left to distract us, and we've allowed it. And we've gone in. Yeah, let's focus on sex, movies, TV, books, working out constantly, whatever it is, folks. Hunting, golfing. Again, golfing goes with athletics. We're going to go watch our kids, man. We're going to go here this weekend and here this weekend, and next weekend we're going here, and the weekend after that we're going there. Man, aren't we doing such a good job? No, we're not. And somewhere on the inside we know that, but we pretend otherwise. And then if somebody has the integrity and the character to point it out to us, we get really offended. And then we get really mad at them. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know my life. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, folks, to look at how we spend our time and see this. And Lenin laid it out. 100 years ago, laid it out. Get them interested in athletics and other trivialities, things that don't matter. All right, we'll keep going. Divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. I mean, we constantly divide people or allow people to be divided into different groups based on race, ethnicity, class, gender, right? The hyphenated American is the perfect example. Teddy Roosevelt said, one sole flag, one sole language, English, one sole loyalty to America. But what we've done is we've allowed the left to come in and say, well, you're not really acknowledging their history and heritage. It shouldn't be American. It should be African American, Mexican American, Latino American, Japanese American, Black American, White American, Brown American, Hispanic, Australian American, European American. It's insane. We're either American or we aren't. You're not both, folks. You're not both. And when we do that, we put ourselves into these little groups, rich versus poor, male versus female. We divide ourselves. And the left has done it, a fantastic job, and we've let them. And then we focus again on all these controversial matters that don't really matter, right? Like the woke crowd is a perfect example of that. If you're not familiar with the term woke, it's such a trash term, it doesn't even really matter. But an example of it would be the fact like Uncle Ben's rice, if you're familiar with that. It's just Ben's rice now, and there's no more uncle. There's no more black man on the box because that's racist. It's racist rice. I'm not sure how rice is racist, but somebody out there that focuses on race constantly and then wants to pretend that they're not the racist that everybody else is, they managed to convince us that we needed to take Uncle Ben off the box because that made the box and the rice racist. Same thing with Land O'Lakes and the Indian, right? Cleveland Indians, national sports team, right? We're going to mix the two. Now, not only are we going to focus on athletics, we're going to make athletics racist. It's great. It's great. But God forbid we talk about something that actually mattered, like maybe separation of church and state, abortion, illegal immigration. No, those don't matter actually. But man, if we can get this picture of this black man off this box, and we've really done something. Man, that's important. And then those people want to pretend that they're not the racist, that it's other people. It'll make your head spin, folks. All right, here we go. Destroy the people's faith in their natural leaders by holding up the ladder to ridicule, contempt, and obloquy. Had to look that word up. Basically means you make fun of them a lot, right? Ridicule, contempt. There's a better definition. Y'all can go look it up, folks. We do that. Our good leaders. So the way I think you see this often is when you have politicians that stand for the evil values of the left, if they do something wrong, it's no big deal. But if you have people that stand up for our founding faith and principles and they do something wrong, which they will, folks, because nobody's perfect, right? Well, we're gonna absolutely murder them. We're gonna mock them. We're gonna laugh at them. We're gonna destroy them, right? So our good leaders, the left has made a real good job of trying to attack and destroy them, and our bad leaders, they kind of prop them up. So you undermine the ones that are trying to strengthen the nation. Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. You don't hear many people talk about democracy as much as the left. And there's a little bit of truth here. Well, I mean, there's a lot of truth here, but it's interesting. Preach true democracy. So our founders desperately did not want mob democracy, true democracy, mob rule, right? But that's exactly what the left pushes for. Because it ends up in things historically, consistently, every time, like the French Reign of Terror that happened shortly after our revolution, where they guillotined thousands of people. Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Hitler, all of that basically comes into this mob mentality, right? True democracy leads to these leftism, socialism, communism ideologies, right? And so you preach democracy, right? Not even, I think Lenin slipped a little bit here. He should have just said democracy is what he really meant, not true democracy. Because true democracy does help the left seize power as ruthlessly and quickly as possible, right? But either way, take it however you want. It's spot on. The left's doing a great job here again. You take all the power that you can, you make all these new government agencies, you give less and less liberty and freedom. We're living it right now in a lot of ways, folks. But it's been going on for a long time. I mean, the perfect example of taking freedom away is abortion. That is the first inalienable right of our Creator outlined in the Declaration. And somehow we allowed the left, via a completely immoral, horrific, and unjust Supreme Court decision, to say, no, these babies don't have the right to life anymore. That was just a joke. We were just kidding. If the woman doesn't want to have the kid, or the man can force the woman to not have the kid, then that's okay. We're good. They're doing a pretty good job so far, right? If you were giving them a grade, they'd be batting 1,000, making 100 so far. Encourage government extravagance, destroy its credit, produce fear with rising prices, inflation, and general discontent. Government is spending us into oblivion. They're spending money that we don't have, that our children don't have, that our grandchildren don't have. And just spending it as fast as they can print it off. So got that part right. that's destroying its credit, produce fear, rising prices, and inflation. If you don't realize that's going on, just go fill your car up. It won't take you long to figure out that we're dealing with inflation. Or go buy a pound of ground meat, either one. It won't take you long to figure out that we're definitely dealing with rising prices and inflation. And general discontent. You look at the approval ratings for the president, Congress, if they did polls, Supreme Court, just people's happiness in life in general. And this really ties back in, folks, to how you get us focused on trivial matters. Well, that makes life discontent. I don't think that's the right verbiage, but you get what I'm trying to say. When we focus on things that don't matter, it's no wonder we look up and our life is not what we wanted it to be, not what we hoped it would be, not what it should be, not what God had in mind for us, because we're focusing on the unimportant things and ignoring the important things. And it's almost like we're grateful for it because we don't know any better. Like some kind of animal that's been caged up because we don't even understand. Foment unnecessary strikes in vital industries, encourage civil disorders, and foster a soft and lenient attitude on the part of government towards such disorders. BLM, Antifa, violent Marxist, racist riots from a couple years ago, and this is commonplace, folks, off and on. No, we're not going to, these people burned buildings, looted, broke into stores, destroyed livelihoods, destroyed lives, killed people. The list goes on and on. Toppled statues, tore down history. You name it. But we're not going to go punish them. Now, we might catch one or two, but we're just going to let them go again real quick. It's textbook. Absolutely textbook. The modern American left is following Lenin's comment from 101 years ago to a T. To a T. It all goes back to that very first line, folks, right? Corrupt the young, get them away from religion, i.e. God. Everything goes back to that. Separation of church and state. Everything. By spacious argument caused the breakdown of the old moral virtues, honesty, sobriety, continence, faith, and the pledged word, and ruggedness again. We don't value. Old-fashioned is usually looked down upon these days as a culture, as a society. Men acting like men, women acting like women, manners, politeness, virtue, integrity, telling the truth, character. If we do value these things, it's really just lip service. We say, man, that's great. But as a society, as a whole, we don't really value those virtues anymore. Kindness, patience. And then we pretend things are loving that they aren't, supporting people. Oh, you want to be a boy, but you're a girl. I'm going to encourage you in that, right? We completely twist. That's not loving or kind. Oh, you want to break into the country illegally. Oh, you want to murder your own baby. Yeah, I'm going to encourage you in that. And so we pretend like we're being virtuous when we're being the exact opposite. And then the last line of this particular quote: cause the registration of all firearms on some pretext with the view of confiscating them and leaving the population defenseless. If you don't realize the left wants to do that, you're dreaming, folks. You're living an absolute pipe dream. But it all goes back, folks. You want to talk about from an American point of view, which is what this podcast focuses on. It all goes back to the First Amendment. It all goes back to God. We have the freedom in America to reject God. That freedom was never really supposed to be extended to our public institutions, but we've taken it that far. It's like John Adams said, if you have an immoral and irreligious people, right, our government won't work. And that's what we've become. And so when you get that point, then the Second Amendment can't long sustain. can't sustain just in general, and it can't help sustain the country because immoral people, armed immoral people, are worse than unarmed moral people. So straight down the line, folks, this podcast went way over what it normally does, and I apologize for that. But I do think I'm going to come back to this quote a little more frequently than I have, which is not very often. I think this is the second time I've gone through it, because Lenin laid out what you needed to do to destroy our republic. And he laid it out 101 years ago. And the modern American left, our neighbors, our friends, our family who vote for it, support it, or are indifferent to those evil values, they're executing it to a T. And a lot of it, folks, the majority of it has to do with us allowing it to happen in our own lives. You know, you hear so many people that say, I just want to get back to normal after COVID. And I said this recently, maybe the last podcast, I don't remember. Normal's what got us here, folks. Normal's why we're in the mess we're in. We need a radical shift back to God and our republic's founding faith and principles based on the teachings of Jesus Christ. Because that's the only thing that's going to defeat this game plan, this evil game plan that we just laid out. And it's possible, folks. The great thing is we can start with ourselves. And we can light one little candle in the darkness and spread it to other places and teach other people and encourage other people in the truth. And more importantly, we can turn to God individually and as a nation. We can turn to God. It's the only hope we got, folks, at the end of the day. That's it. I'll leave y'all alone. God bless y'all. God bless America and your families. Hope y'all have a wonderful rest of whatever is left of your day. We will talk to y'all again real soon. Looking forward to it.